self-talk hack you might be missing. Hello and welcome back to another episode. And let's today dive in to something a little bit nerdy, but something that I love, and it's our brain's representational systems. And we're going to do it in a fun and simple way. I'd like to invite you to think of your brain as a big, quirky movie studio, right? It's got different departments, each responsible for creating a movie of your life. And here are the main departments, or what we call representational systems. So number one is the one that's probably got the biggest explanation because it's the overthinking mind. We call it auditory digital. And this is the part of your brain that stores all of words and language. It's the script writer, the analyst, the inner coach. The system is organized with words. It's constantly typing out scripts, making lists, and engaging in internal monologues. It's the reason you can hold an internal debate and talk yourself through a problem or repeat affirmations like, I can do this. The digital system loves puzzles and making sense of the world. It's always analyzing situations, organizing information, solving problems. And if you find yourself thinking, like, does this make sense? Or what's the next step? It's your digital system at work. This part of your brain is your internal coach, always giving you pep talks or sometimes, and more commonly, critical feedback. It's the voice that's saying, you've got this, or what were you thinking? It's great at helping you plan and reflect and stay on track. In essence, the auditory digital representational system, or AD, as we call it, is the part of your brain that keeps everything organized and makes sense of the chaos and ensures your internal dialogue is running smoothly. It's the rational voice amidst the sensory party from your feels and your vision and your hearing and all the things, making sure that your life's movie has a coherent plot. And a lot of people spend a lot of time in their digital mind, usually to avoid feeling emotions like pain because they've been hurt in the past. But it's very difficult to create and enjoy life from the AD mind alone. We need some visual and we need some kinesthetic. So that brings me to number two, visual, the director. This is the part of your brain that loves pictures. It's constantly painting scenes, creating vivid imagery, and directing your internal movie. It's the reason you can visualize your dream vacation or remember what your best friend's face looks like when they laugh. Our visual mind, of course, can paint a lot of negativity. And a lot of this comes back to the language we use and the stories we tell, right? And I always love to give the example of thinking about different words that we use in our vocabulary to describe our life or to talk throughout the day. Because all the words that we use, our mind has a visual image for each of those words. And so, for example, if we were to utilize the word trauma for a moment, common word, very common these days, people are saying it a lot, and I was one of them. But if I asked you to close your eyes and say the word trauma and tell me the picture that comes into your mind, trauma, what's the picture? That picture is what your mind thinks is happening when you say that word. And so what do you think the brain's going to do if you're saying that word all the time? Because it's highly likely I know for me, I got a picture of being wounded on the battlefield, limbs missing, blood spurting, death. It's kind of stressful, right? And so if I were to say the word trauma all the time, my body's going to be being signaled by my brain to release cortisol because there's something really, 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 really wrong right now, even when there's not, even if the thing happened 5 minutes ago or 10, 20, 30 years ago. This is how we keep problems of the past alive in our body and wear our bodies down and make ourselves sick through thought alone. It's also how we heal ourselves. So whether it's the word trauma or struggling or broken, pick one. There's so many of them. And I've done podcasts on this in the past. We do whole trainings on it inside LRA. But what would happen if you started removing some of these words from your vocabulary for a while? Let the cortisol start to decrease in your body, which actually starts to open up your visual mind more to the things that you want. It sounds silly, but to take a word like trauma and replace it with a gift can be a bit challenging for people. And yet anything bad that we've been through in the past is actually a gift to help us to see where we want to go. That releases less cortisol, meaning we have more energy to do the things to solve the problem. And having a vision of the future also helps our reticular activating system to start seeing their pathways there. That's why vision boards are so popular and why they work so well. Because we're starting to work with the director, the visual part of our mind. Number 3, auditory. This is the sound engineer of the movie. This department is all about sound. It handles everything you hear, from your favorite song to the sound of your alarm clock. It also helps you recall conversations and hear that little voice in your head. Hopefully it's saying nice things. However, a lot of the time, our auditory mind is the voice in our head that's telling a negative story about our past, present, or future, attaching meanings to things that might not even warrant a negative meaning. Replaying arguments in our head or conversations in our head or creating new ones, right? And a lot of the time we compare the auditory system to be very similar to the digital mind, the auditory digital system, because it's getting wrapped up in that story and that data and that thinking in the form of the voice in our mind. Number 4, it's my favorite and my primary rep system. It's kinesthetic, the stunt coordinator, let's call it, or the feeler on set. This one's in charge of feelings and movements. It's the reason you can feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, the softness of puppy's fur, or the satisfaction of a good stretch. It also helps you how to remember to ride a bike or dance like nobody's watching. This is also where all of your emotions are stored, all of your feelings, all of the good, the bad, the ugly, the delicious, the divine, the sensual, the messy. All the feelings of the past and the future are all stored in this beautiful part of the mind, an aid to the creation of a movie that really captures and entertains and keeps it spicy. Then there's a couple that we'll just touch on because they're not as important to the work that we do in this space. We have olfactory, which is our scent, and we have gustatory, which is our taste. And you can definitely lean on these for things, and we won't go into them for the purpose of the outcome of this video. But I want you to imagine your brain's studio throwing a big party. Each department brings its unique flavor to the event. So the visual director is setting up a stunning visual display. The auditory sound engineer is playing with the perfect playlist. The kinesthetic is organizing fun activities and making sure everyone's having a good time. Olfactory is making sure the air is filled with delicious aromas, and gustatory is making sure all the snacks are there. And together, these departments create a rich, multi-sensory experience that makes your internal movie as vivid and engaging as possible. So next time You find yourself vividly recalling a memory or daydreaming about the future, hopefully, building a beautiful vision of where you would love to go so that you can create it. Just remember, it's thanks to your brain's talented team working hard to make your life's movie a hit. If you're not being conscious with your rep systems, it's likely that your rep systems are working together to make your life's movie more of a horror film, where you're consistently stressed and scared and failing and being betrayed and hurt, right? I've been there. That was me. It sucked. The ultimate goal is not to be in one rep system over another. It's to have flexibility across our rep systems, to find more balance between all of them, primarily kinesthetic, visual, and AD. And to start programming with what you actually want, not what you don't want. And most of the people who come to me who are very much stuck in overthinking and inaction or pain, problems, trauma, are usually stuck in AD or auditory, as I once was. And the work that we do helps to shift a lot of this into visual and kinesthetic again, so that you can really start to create that vision and feel great about it and release quote unquote negative emotions that you don't need. And while there's a number of things I walk people through, the primary core of it all comes down to dun, 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 the story we tell, the meanings being focused on, maybe the environment that we're in that's getting us to focus on negativity rather than anything else. Perhaps the feeling being avoided or made bad by the mind, and the lack of action being taken. And so I'm going to run you through a few things that you can do to start bringing more harmony between your rep systems. So number one, affirmations. Recognizing the conflicting stories and language within your mind and your digital system and creating new ones. Recognizing the negative stories and meanings that you attach to things, catching them and going, wait a second, that's not serving me. Create a reframe, create a new story, create it in an affirmation. And every single time the resistance arises and you go to start to tell that old negative story of they're against me, it'll never work out, I'm a failure, whatever your favorite flavor of suffering story is, utilize those moments to tell the new affirmation and the new story. Every single time you do, you're lifting a weight. You are training the mind at the gym and building a new program that gets easier and easier and easier, which starts seeing new reality and experiencing new life. Number two, getting clear on actions that will move you to a new state and taking the action. It's uncomfortable, but it's better than the crappy life that you currently might have getting worse, is it not? Number three, working with the parts that are in conflict with where you want to go and integrating them as opposed to rejecting them. This is how we create momentum to move forward to where we want to be. Quick story. I ran a training recently in the Lovely Radical Academy about getting stuck in what we call an ADK loop and how to get out of it. And I mentioned that most primary kinesthetics are actually spending more time in their data mind, overthinking, analyzing, because their brain has decided that it's safer than feeling because they've been hurt when they allow themselves to feel. And I used to get in some major ADK loops, just ask my coaches and mentors. And for me, this felt like when I used to get severe panic attacks, I would feel the bad things from something that had not worked out. And then I'd give time to analyze the hell out of it. I'd overthink about all the things that had happened. all the things that I did know, all the things that I didn't know. Could I have done it better? Who was there to blame? By the way, loops can become more intense the more we learn about self-development, when we realize that we're actually playing a part in the creation of the unwanted things that are happening in our world. And you can also get out of it by applying this faster. But I would drive myself to the edge of insanity and sometimes beyond, getting stuck in these loops, in the feeling bad and then overthinking about the feeling bad and then feeling bad again and then overthinking about the feeling bad, rather than going, I actually have a clear action plan or know how to create one, so that gets me into my visual and I take freaking action and I get myself out of this loop. And after a particularly challenging breakup where there was a lot of gaslighting and lying, I was going quite crazy, trying to make sense of my reality with all the lies and then the breadcrumbing. And having not experienced something like this, while at the same time having the awareness that I had played a role in how it had all come to pass, I was so desperately trying to make sense of it while I was withdrawing from the person physically that I'd been falling in love with, who was suddenly not only gone, but had already built a relationship with somebody else before he'd let me know. I was analyzing it every single day for months, analyzing all of the moments and months that we spent together, every word that had been spoken and heard, every event, every message, every phone call. I was literally driving myself insane, desperately trying to find sense in it, which was making me go insane. It was making me exhausted, which was making me feel like I was losing my mind. And what it was is my brain was trying to find some kind of safety or stability, going from feeling to thinking to feeling to thinking to feeling to thinking. Right? I remember feeling so overwhelmed with the time I was giving to the overthinking and the analyzing. I was scared I might go over the edge. One night I quietly took myself to hospital and asked to be placed on watch, just so that I could have somewhere with enough distraction and attention to stop the constant looping. I've never told that story before. I hated that I was doing that. I knew that there was nothing that the medical world could do to help with the situation long term, but it was the middle of the night and I was exhausted and scared and didn't want to burden anyone. Classic people pleaser. And I knew that I'd created the mess that I'd found myself in somehow at the end of the day. And I remember they gave me some medication. They spoke to me with kindness. I recall myself keeping all of my weirdness of what was happening in my mind inside, and only gave them surface level conversation in the hospital of why I was there, so that they didn't know how crazy I actually am and commit me. I remember zoning out a little bit with what they gave me to take and looking around for ages at the medical staff and wondering what their lives were. Had they ever had moments like this? And it was a great distraction. And after 24 hours, I was home and a little more energy from finally being able to rest my brain. And while it took weeks to heal my physical body from the harshness of the medications they'd given me, do not recommend, while it might have been an upside in that moment after weeks of overthinking and driving myself insane, the now weeks of digestive issues and hives and breakouts and from the meds was not so great. It was the thing that I needed back then to save me from completely getting lost in my 80K looping. Since then, I have much better tools than having to go to hospital and get medication to support me to get out of a loop if and when they happen. And I can usually get out of one myself. And if not, I have my beautiful coaches in close circle who know how to call me on my own BS and into action. And that's the key. And I know people don't want to hear it, but it's action. It's using our visual rep system more to take new action. It doesn't actually matter what you do in the beginning, just do something different. Anything different, and it will lead to something. And then do something different then to how you would normally do it. I also then use kinesthetic to have compassion for the parts of myself that have been hurting, to give them what they need, love and nurture and kindness, to mother myself through a breakup or a challenge in life rather than needing someone else to do it, which created so much stability and continues to. I use the awareness of the current story, so the data mind and the analysis, to recognize what's holding me back and to flip the script, to create the reframes and the affirmations, to choose again and again and again the new story, which builds the new program. So action from the visual, compassion from the kinesthetic, awareness of the story and how to change it from the data mind is how we start to utilize all of our rep systems to come into more balance and to create a better reality. And if you're prone, like I used to be, to getting stuck for way too long and overthinking and looping and it's driving you up the wall, perhaps it's time to start finding balance between the systems of your beautiful brain. Until next time, choose it, create it, enjoy it. And if you need help with any of this, then come and join us inside LRA or apply anywhere on my online spaces for a chat about how we can work together on this so that you can bounce back quickly and create all the things that you actually want and came here to create. See you next time.